you said you obviously left Disney after 4 years, and this was before a lot of the current ideology that we see happened in the company. While you were there, did you start to see some of this creeping in, or was this after your time?
Oh yeah, so it started creeping in. If you're talking about all the DEI stuff, ESG stuff, it was there behind the scenes pretty strongly as I was about to leave. There was a seminar that I remember doing a double take on. So this must have been 2016. There was a seminar at the ESG or at ESPN, and it was about. I don't remember the exact title. I'm heavily paraphrasing here because it wasn't as blunt. But it was about white guilt and what you can do about it
Oh
effectively.
wow,
And
wow.
Very
I just remember
difficult.
doing it. Yeah, I just remember doing a double take and like, what is this doing at Disney? Why is this at ESPN of all places? Like, what does this have to do? And so you started to see it kind of make its way through there. It was the early stages of making the rounds behind the corporate scenes to shift into that direction. And so the traces of it were there. Um, it wasn't heavily featured in anything, and I thought it was weird because Disney didn't need that. Even before they had mandatory check boxes and everything, Disney never had a problem with anything that would you would need as an ESG company because Disney is the place that everyone wants to work, and it's one of the only places, in games, especially in engineering, it's almost all guys. That wasn't the case at Disney. There were more than enough girls because if you're going to go into that field, there a large number of women would prefer to work for Disney than most other companies. So they never had a problem with that. They never had a need for that. So it was really weird that these seminars were popping up. I thought, and then of course, 10 years later, you see where things have gone. But it was the very early initial stages there.
Okay, so this was about a decade ago, in 2014 or so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely remember a couple of them popping up as I was getting ready to leave in 2016.
And what was the reaction like just across the board when you see something about white guilt? I mean, obviously you were like, "What?" But what was the justification behind them doing this? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of questions here, but it was more like we just need to make sure. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's been going on for a decade now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't
So
know. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say I don't know what the justification was. So Disney has a lot of these seminars, and most of them are pretty mundane. A lot of them aren't even corporate. Some might be environmental in nature. Some might be helping with finance. Seminar on buying your first home, seminar on learning from Disney artists. There's a ton of these things, and they encourage you. A lot of them are technical in discipline, either learning software stuff, learning art stuff, learning how the rest of the company works, and they encourage you to expand your horizon in terms of that. So it was just a weird one-off on one of those. And so I saw it in the list of all these seminars being offered, and I just made a mental note of that's weird. But realistically, you could approach Disney with any of these that you wanted. So I thought at the time it was just a random employee who this was their thing and they wanted to have a seminar about it. Didn't look into it beyond that, and didn't realize it was going to become an actual big thing at Disney.
My
It,
gosh.
it only takes one. It only takes one. Wow. Okay. I mean, seeing that, hearing that 10 years ago, well, like 10, 9, 8
Ish,
years
yeah.
ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy to hear. Do you think that? And you said you left in 2016. We know that the world kind of shifted a little bit in 2016. Was there a reaction internally to the election of Trump in 2016 at Disney, or
I
was it
would
just
company wide a little bit, but it was more you felt it on the individual level. I was never one to talk politics, and never got political, especially in the office space. Obviously, a lot of the people at Disney, it is Southern California, and it's Disney in general. Most people there are fairly left leaning, at the very least. And you could tell towards the end of 2016 when Trump was a little bit more than a joke, especially after that first debate. You could tell some people's moods had changed. And before they were able to listen to people who supported Trump in the office or people who supported Cruz or whatever and kind of have a back and forth and laugh it off and remain friends. And that kind of stopped after that first debate, and especially after the election. Any vocal support towards the right wing was not treated well. And I didn't see too much of that. Like I said, I never got political, never really cared for it back then. And but I did see people's attitudes change for sure. Company wide, I don't know how much that affected things. I'm sure I got a few people at the top were not happy, but I mostly saw it at the individual level, just the people you worked with.
Well,
Hmm. It's almost like there was a, I don't know, I think 2020 for me was the first time I really kind of started recognizing how crazy things were, specifically with Disney. Um, you had left by that time,
Mhm.
but some of the changes that have been implemented over the last 4 or 5 years, it's almost like they've gone out of their way to price out the regular family, and everything has become so pricey, and it's very expensive to go to Disney. It's always been expensive. Now it's extremely expensive to go to Disney. It's a single park ticket for a day is over $200 to go to. They've had this
It's crazy.
this scalability pricing where some days it's 200, some days it's $250. Then on top of that, the they had the fast pass, which is no longer a part of, it's no longer a feature of the park. Now they got the Disney Plus, I'm sorry, the Genie Plus, and then they got, I don't know, was that something that you started to see back then, this idea of like, how can we not provide the best experience for our guests, but get every single potential cent we can out of them while they're here?
Oh yes. So you hit the nail on the head noticing it at 2020. Massive shift happened then. And in fact, I texted one of my old contacts who was still at the parks, and I said, they're going to use this as the opportunity, right? It's what they've been waiting for. And she just replied, yep. And she knew exactly what I was talking about. What I was talking about was redoing the annual pass. Disney, since before I started, has been wanting to redo the annual pass, but they knew they had a revolt on their hands. I used to always get the pass with no blackout dates, and then I was an employee, and that wasn't the thing. But yep, so they knew getting rid of that, they'd have a revolt and a riot on their hands, and so they were always waiting for an opportunity to present itself to restructure, and as you said, effectively nickel and dime. And COVID shutdowns provided the perfect opportunity. And they weren't even worried about lost revenue or parks being shut down. They were so thrilled to have the excuse to redo the annual pass.
that is heartbreaking. I was following along with that. That is a pivotal moment for me because that was the first time I became an annual pass holder. Because up until
Oh,
then, my family was the one doing it, and then they kind of teetered off, and I was like, okay, I'll take it over. And I bought my first annual pass as a key, and my heart shattered because I had just a pass holder for 20 years. We would go all the time as a family, and it was great. We didn't have to reserve. There was no blackout dates. Fast passes. They also killed fast passes, which my heart shattered extra for that. And I will never let that go. But yeah, I have only like personally myself owned a key, and it is the shittiest thing ever.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Sorry, Mally, I'm not familiar. What do you mean? But when you say you own a key, what does that mean?
So a magic key is an annual pass. It is today's annual pass system. It's what they killed annual passes with. Um, and just to kind of piggyback on the whole nickel and diming topic you were discussing, you're right. Because in this last year alone, in less than the last 365 days, I think it's since March until now, they have had two pay increases. I started paying, which is already ridiculous, but I had the bottom tier, that's the non-local Southern California, whatever, you have to be in a certain zip code. I have the bottom tier, I have the enchant key. I have the bottom tier for normal people to get. It's like 700 fucking dollars, okay, per person. And I was paying for that. And then they upped it twice by hundreds of dollars. It is now $1,000. It is now a
Wow.
$1,000 to get that bottom tier pass. And it's like, yeah, that's what they were waiting for. You nailed it, Robert. They were waiting to nickel and dime people. They wanted to do that. And COVID was the prime fucking opportunity. I went to not the parks because they weren't open, but I went to Disney property during COVID. They were awful, god awful. I will never forget the way that I was hounded by those cast members. Man, put your mask back above your nose. I am outside breathing open fucking air. Put your dick back in your pants. Calm down. Like you are actually up my ass right now. And just I will never forget how I was treated back then.
Oh yeah, we went to Disney during COVID as well, and while it felt like nobody was there. We went to the Florida parks, and this is before all the, this is, I would say this is September of 2020,
Mhm.
and I remember taking, yeah, everyone had their stupid masks on, and I remember pulling my mask down, and it was like fucking Gestapo came out, and they were, "What are you doing?" Like this guy, I remember this guy 50 yards away, like he's like running up to me.
Running towards me. I'm like, wow, that's gonna help. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yep.
also when they started, and this set me off and almost made me never buy another annual pass at that point. But it was they started they for like a month or two kind of played with the idea of requiring proof of vaccine, and I was like, I'm gonna lose it. I'm actually gonna lose it if you're gonna start requiring that, like it's fucking Nazi Germany. Where are your papers? Papers, please. Get fucked, Disney. Stay fucked. Absolutely not.